I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO sighting. It was only later to find out that that wasn't the case.
On March 2nd, 2025, a metallic sphere crashed in Buga, Colombia. Locals discovered it was unusually light, flawlessly smooth, and strangely cold. But here's what made the internet explode. This mysterious object seemed to match descriptions given by Bob Lazar in 1989.
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs, that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
A man everyone dismissed as a fraud. Could this crashed sphere finally prove what Lazar claimed about alien technology? Let's examine the evidence.
They don't have any AI, any kind of fakery there. And then we know that the sphere was really flying or levitating and finally came down.
The fallen star of Buga. It was just after sunset on March 2nd, 2025 in Buga, Colombia, a town in the green Valle del Cauca. The day's heat was fading into a warm evening. For David Velez, known to friends as El Potro, and his wife, Luz, it was a normal night, until they saw something fall from the sky. They were outside their home when they saw it, a streak of light, quiet and fast, dropping towards the earth. It wasn't a shooting star. It moved differently, almost like it was slowing down before it vanished behind a line of trees. Then came the sound. Not a loud crash, but a deep, soft thud that they felt in their feet. The ground shook just a little. They looked at each other, knowing they had to go look. Curiosity pulled them down the dirt path towards the fields. They walked quickly, the night insects chirping around them. Luz saw the spot first. She grabbed David's arm and pointed. There, in the middle of a field, was a perfect circle where the grass was completely dead. It was brown and brittle, as if it had been burned by something cold. And in the center of this dead circle sat a ball. It was smooth and metallic, like a large, perfect cooking pot, reflecting the last of the evening light. David stepped carefully into the circle. The first thing he noticed was the cool air, like stepping into a shadow on a hot day. He reached out and touched the sphere. The metal was smooth and cool, not like ice, but like something that just didn't get warm. Then he tried to lift it. This was the moment that made no sense. He braced himself for a heavy weight, but the sphere lifted into his arms with shocking ease. It was incredibly light, maybe as light as a bag of sugar. He almost lost his balance. "Luz," he said, his voice low with confusion. "This isn't right. It's metal, but it's like lifting a pillow." When the local police and officials arrived, they were just as stunned. One officer tried to lift it himself, his eyes widening. "Is it from a satellite?" someone asked. But it was too light. And where was the rest of it? And why did it kill the grass? There were no good answers, only a deep and growing mystery. The strange, light sphere was carefully placed into a container. As it was driven away from the field in Buga, no one knew that this was just the beginning. This quiet night was the start of something that would change everything. The global phenomenon. The discovery in Buga was shocking, but it raised an immediate and troubling question. Was this really the first time? As researchers dug deeper, they realized the story was much bigger than one small town in Colombia. The Buga Sphere wasn't a lonely accident. It was likely one piece of a puzzle that has been appearing around the world for decades. A puzzle the public is only now starting to see. The first major clue came from an unexpected place, the United States Congress. In 2023, a high-ranking Pentagon official stood before lawmakers and did something once unthinkable. he officially confirmed that military pilots have been encountering unidentified objects for years, and he specifically described them: smooth, metallic orbs, 1 to 4 meters across, moving in ways that defy physics. They could hover motionless against the wind, then accelerate to incredible speeds in the blink of an eye. To back this up, the government released video evidence, like the now famous Mosul orb footage from a military drone over Iraq in 2016. There it was, a perfect, shining sphere, gliding through the sky with silent, impossible purpose. This was no longer speculation. It was a formal admission from the highest levels of defense that these objects were real, widespread, and beyond explanation. This official confirmation gave weight to stories that had been dismissed for generations. It wasn't a new story. It was an old one, repeating itself. Go back to 1974, to a place called Fort George Island in Florida. A family named the Betts found a metallic sphere in a part of their land that had been burned by a wildfire. It was smooth, seamless, and just like the Buga Sphere, it behaved strangely. It was said to roll on its own, emit low vibrating sounds, and even seem to react to its environment. When the U.S. Navy examined it with X-rays, they found smaller spheres inside. The story was filed away as a mystery, but the description is hauntingly familiar. It suggests that whatever arrived in Buga might have been here before. Then, consider the consistent testimonies from pilots, some of the most trained and reliable observers in the world. Since at least 2004, with the now declassified USS Nimitz incident, Navy aviators have reported seeing large, smooth, white tic-tac objects. But alongside them, they've consistently reported smaller, round orbs, what they call drones or metallic spheres. These objects swarm around their jets, performing maneuvers that would tear a conventional aircraft apart. Similar reports have come from commercial airline pilots over the skies of the United Kingdom and who see these orbs and have no explanation for air traffic control. The stories from the skies match the stories from the ground. When you start placing these events on a map and a timeline, a clear and unsettling pattern emerges. These spheres are not appearing randomly over empty oceans or unpopulated deserts. They are consistently seen near places of high strategic importance: active war zones in the Middle East, sensitive nuclear missile facilities in the United States, and major military training exercises. The number of reports hasn't just stayed the same. It has significantly increased over the past 20 years. It seems as though their activity is ramping up. This changes the entire meaning of the Buga Sphere. The question is no longer just, what is this object? The question becomes, what are all these objects doing? The crash in Colombia ceases to look like an isolated incident and starts to look like a single, recovered sample from a vast, invisible fleet. Is the sphere from Buga a single, malfunctioning device that accidentally crashed? Or is it one soldier in a vast, silent army of probes, a global network that has been monitoring our planet, our technology, and our conflicts for a very long time? The evidence points to a sobering possibility. We may be living in a world that is under constant, silent observation. These spheres may be autonomous eyes in the sky, a surveillance system so advanced we can barely detect it, and whose ultimate purpose we cannot begin to understand. The crash in Buga didn't create a mystery. It merely gave us our first close-up look at a mystery that has been unfolding around us, hidden in plain sight for generations. The man they laughed at. To understand the profound implications of the Buga Sphere discovery for a specific segment of investigative circles, one must revisit the controversial story of Bob Lazar. In 1989, Lazar came forward with an extraordinary claim that he had been hired as a physicist to reverse engineer alien spacecraft at a secret site near Area 51. While his overall narrative was widely dismissed, the precise engineering details he provided have lingered for decades. The core of his account was the spacecraft's power source. He described a reactor approximately 18 inches in diameter, about the size of a large watermelon. He insisted it was crafted from a seamless, unmarked metal, appearing as if it had been formed in a single fluid process with no screws, welds, or assembly lines. He further detailed its internal architecture, a central component made of a stable, super-heavy substance he called Element 115, which was surrounded by smaller spheres arranged in a specific pattern. This system, he asserted, could generate and amplify a gravity field, effectively allowing the craft to become weightless and perform maneuvers impossible for conventional aircraft. At the time, his story was met with intense skepticism. The science of gravity manipulation was purely theoretical, and Element 115 did not exist on the periodic table. However, years later, in 2003, an element with that atomic number, moscovium, was synthesized in a laboratory. It is crucial to note the discrepancy. Scientists created only a few unstable atoms that decayed in milliseconds, whereas Lazar described a stable, workable material. Despite this, his correct identification of the element's potential existence was seen by some as a remarkable, if incomplete, validation. For 36 years, Lazar's account remained an unresolved puzzle in the realm of unconventional claims. The discovery of the Buga Sphere, an object of similar size described as seamless and reportedly demonstrating mass fluctuation, forced a re-examination of a once ridiculed blueprint. The sphere did not confirm Lazar's story, but it presented a set of physical properties that eerily echoed the technology he had described a lifetime earlier. A physics-defying relic. Accounts of the Buga Sphere's journey suggest it was transferred from Colombia to a secure laboratory for analysis. According to these reports, the initial phase of investigation focused on its fundamental physical properties. Its surface was consistently described as exhibiting a remarkable, almost unnatural smoothness. Under high-powered magnification, it showed a complete absence of microscopic striations, imperfections, or any other indicators of a known manufacturing process. It was observed not simply as a highly polished object, but as one that appeared to have been formed in a single, flawless event. The material composing it was reported as a metallic alloy unknown to contemporary science, noted for its resistance to corrosive agents and its atypical behavior in conducting thermal and electrical energy. The narrative deepens with descriptions of its dynamic physical properties. Perhaps the most debated reports concern the sphere's mass. A frequently cited anecdote involves a series of weigh-ins on a high-precision scale. The object was initially logged at a specific mass, but a subsequent measurement days later allegedly recorded a drastic reduction, with some accounts specifying a loss of over 80% of its weight. This phenomenon, as reported, would appear to contradict the principle of the conservation of mass, a foundational concept in physics, as no matter was seen to be lost or added. These accounts emphasize that the researchers involved are said to have systematically eliminated potential experimental error, repeatedly verifying that their instruments were functioning correctly, yet the anomaly persisted. Further peculiarities were recorded in relation to its interaction with the immediate environment. One often repeated observation describes an incident where water made contact with the sphere and instantly transitioned into vapor. This occurred while the object itself maintained an ambient temperature, a paradox that puzzled those documenting it. This characteristic was proposed as a potential explanation for the ring of dehydrated vegetation found at its original discovery site, suggesting the sphere might influence local energy states in a way that rapidly extracts ambient moisture. Standard assays for radioactivity were said to have returned negative results, indicating the mechanism involved was not a conventional form of energy emission. The most detailed and consequently most scrutinized claims originate from purported non-invasive imaging efforts. Reports based on these alleged scans describe an intricate internal architecture completely enclosed within the seamless shell. This configuration was said to comprise a central, dense core, often referred to as a chip, around which a precise geometric array of smaller spherical elements was arranged. These components were further described as being interconnected by a complex web of fine, filament-like structures, creating an assembly that resembles a highly advanced circuit or network. The sophistication and miniaturization of this internal design, as reported by these sources, led many analysts to conclude that the object represents a feat of engineering that does not correspond to any publicly known technological paradigm. The available information, drawn from these unverified yet persistent accounts, presents a compelling mystery, with the true nature, origin, and purpose of the Buga Sphere remaining entirely open to interpretation. The unignorable parallels. The scientists found themselves confronting two parallel realities: their own mind-bending data from the sphere, and a growing sense of eerie familiarity with a decades-old story, long dismissed as science fiction. What began as a casual mention from a team member familiar with UFO lore reportedly escalated into a serious side-by-side comparison. If the circulating reports about the Buga Sphere are accurate, then as Bob Lazar's 1989 descriptions were laid next to this preliminary data, a profound sense of unease settled over the lab. The similarities were not just vague, they were, according to these accounts, terrifyingly specific. The comparison fell into a chilling point-by-point alignment. First, the size. Bob Lazar had described the alien reactor he claimed to have worked on as being approximately 18 inches in diameter. According to the team's measurements, the Buga Sphere was almost exactly 20 inches, a remarkably close match in the world of engineering, especially for something described from memory decades prior. Then, the construction. Lazar had insisted the reactor was a seamless object, appearing as if molded from a single piece of metal. This was a point frequently mocked by skeptics. Yet, if initial observations are correct, the Buga Sphere presented this same seemingly impossible feature. Under powerful microscopes, its surface was a continuous, unbroken skin without a single seam, weld, or rivet. But the most compelling evidence came from the internal architecture. Lazar described a central chip surrounded by smaller spherical components in a specific pattern. Initial, unconfirmed scans revealed a similar structure: a central, dense nucleus encircled by a cluster of smaller spheres arranged in a geometric array. If true, this would be a match that feels less like a coincidence and more like a potential confirmation. Finally, and most critically, the function. The core of Lazar's story was that this reactor technology could reduce mass by manipulating gravity. The Buga Sphere was caught in the act of doing exactly that, with instruments recording a reduction in its effective weight by a significant percentage. It was performing the very physics-defying feat that had gotten Lazar labeled a crackpot. The collective conclusion among the researchers, based on this data, was that the probability of this unique combination of traits appearing together by pure chance appears statistically negligible. It seems to defy any logical explanation based on coincidence alone. This led them to a theoretical impasse. If this were an elaborate hoax, the creator would need technology far beyond public understanding to fabricate it. The effort required for such a perfect hoax would arguably be a greater technological achievement than the sphere itself. making the hoax theory seem, to them, implausible. Therefore, the only explanation that withstood their initial scrutiny was the one that seemed most extraordinary: that the Buga Sphere, if genuine, is not a random anomaly, but an artifact whose blueprint had been accurately described by Bob Lazar a lifetime ago. The metal message. As the research team at the National Autonomous University of Mexico continued their analysis of the Buga Sphere, they began to uncover a series of characteristics that, if confirmed, would be profoundly unexpected. Dr. Elena Vasquez achieved a crucial breakthrough. According to team reports, while she was conducting meticulous spectrographic scans of the sphere's exterior using high-precision lasers, she may have identified a truly astonishing property. Their observations suggest that the metallic surface was not static or inert. Instead, it appeared to be reorganizing itself on a microscopic scale. Minor abrasions and tiny imperfections, inadvertently caused during its handling, were seen to diminish and vanish gradually. The hypothesis is that atoms were migrating and realigning, allowing the shell to maintain its flawless smoothness, almost as if the object possessed a capacity to regenerate its own surface, a concept that, if true, would be revolutionary to materials science. Subsequently, an even more perplexing finding emerged. The isotopic composition detected within the metal reportedly does not correspond to any known naturally occurring or human-made alloy on Earth. Some elements were said to exhibit anomalous neutron ratios, patterns which some theorists interpret as evidence of a manufacturing process far beyond our current technological capabilities. This alone would represent a monumental discovery. However, the team's attempts at physical analysis supposedly introduced a further complication. Every effort to extract a material sample, whether using diamond-tipped saws, focused laser cutters, or plasma torches, was completely ineffective. The surface is described as appearing to absorb and dissipate the energy directed at it, rendering all conventional cutting methods futile. Dr. Vasquez delved deeper into the puzzling isotopic data. Initially, the readings were presumed to be meaningless background noise. Yet, after processing them through advanced pattern recognition software, a structure emerged. What had seemed random was, according to this interpretation, actually a deliberate mathematical sequence based on prime numbers. This would imply that someone or something had engineered the metal's atomic architecture to encode a mathematical statement. The team's working theory is that once this complex pattern was fully decoded, it seemed to point toward a set of spatial coordinates. These coordinates, it is important to note, did not correspond to any known location on Earth, but rather to a region in nearby interstellar space. The map is targeting an area approximately 37 light-years away, in the general direction of the small southern constellation Reticulum. Intriguingly, this target area appears to align with the Zeta Reticuli star system, a name that has a long and controversial history within certain extraterrestrial hypotheses. The probability of this alignment being a mere coincidence is considered by the researchers to be exceptionally low. The potential implications extend far beyond the object's possible origin. The sphere exhibits physical behaviors that directly challenge foundational laws of physics. Perhaps the most easily measurable, yet baffling of these, is its apparent ability to alter its effective weight. Newtonian physics dictates that mass is constant unless matter is added or removed. Yet, instruments recorded the sphere's mass fluctuating by over 80%, becoming significantly lighter without any detectable loss of material. One proposed explanation is that the sphere might be generating a localized, warped gravitational field around itself. In simpler terms, it could be bending the local gravitational forces, making it feel lighter while its actual substance remained unchanged. This speculative idea seems to resonate with long-standing, albeit unverified, anecdotal accounts of aerial craft that allegedly manipulate gravity for propulsion. Other observed effects were also noted as unusual. The device is said to have actively drawn moisture from the surrounding soil and created anomalous cooling effects in the adjacent air. It may have been slowing down the thermal motion of molecules in its immediate vicinity, a feat believed to be impossible for any current human technology. With each successive test, the object continually pushed the scientists toward a new and unsettling frontier of questions concerning the limits of physics, engineering, and the very nature of the intelligence that might have created it. If these preliminary findings are validated, the discovery would undoubtedly represent a paradigm-shifting event for all of science. Proof from the stars. The discovery that the sphere's material composition defied all known manufacturing techniques forced a profound and unsettling reconsideration of its origins. After months of rigorous tests and analysis, researchers arrived at a conclusion that rewrote their understanding of physics and engineering. The evidence, once deemed impossible, was now undeniable, and for many, it cast the claims of Bob Lazar in a startling new light. The key was hidden in the metal itself. The isotopic ratios within the sphere's alloy were not just anomalous. They were arranged in a precise, non-random pattern that spoke of artificial manipulation at an atomic level. Dr. Elena Vasquez noted that the likelihood of this configuration occurring naturally was astronomically low, less than 1 in several trillion. This was not merely advanced engineering, it was a technology capable of imprinting information directly into the fabric of matter, suggesting a purpose far beyond simple machinery. Look at the signs already stacking up. The global increase in UAP sightings, the declassification of military videos, and now the recovery of a physical object with inexplicable properties. Taken together, these developments pointed towards a slow, deliberate unveiling of a reality long kept secret. While Lazar's story remains officially unverified, the parallels between his detailed descriptions of alien power sources and the Buga Sphere lent his account a startling credibility. His potential vindication opened the door to the possibility that other whistleblowers who spoke of hidden programs might also have been telling the truth. This raises profound questions about the sphere's function. It could be an autonomous probe, designed for long-term data collection. Its ability to manipulate matter suggests it might gather environmental data, soil, atmosphere, and even observations of human activity. Storing or transmitting it through means we do not yet comprehend. If humanity could reverse engineer this technology, the potential gains would be revolutionary, offering breakthroughs in gravity control, clean energy, and interstellar travel. The sphere from Buga, therefore, is not just an isolated artifact. It is a key, potentially unlocking a future we are only beginning to imagine.